Mangwana ni mwalelepo vukenja ni Kleklas Manave Africa. Welcome to Africa. Good morning. The news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Bedi and Aina Raisa Kweyo, ready to engage with the content.
In the news today, Kenya bans churches linked to cult deaths. Zimbabwe deport SA journalist before election, and 7 children killed in fire at Congolese camp for displaced flood victims. You can follow all our programs on oneup2.com as well as DSTV 285 and GoTV 25. Later on during the show, we speak to Talen Gore, bringing us the news from Zimbabwe, as well as Ari Hohad, bringing us sports news. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Active Kids, a daily TV show that sparks creativity, learning, and fun for young minds. With exciting activities and lessons, Active Kids inspires curiosity and a love for learning.
New face to the 15.
The perfect mix of play and education. Don't miss out on the fun. Tune into Active Kids on NTV every weekday at 10 o'clock and let the adventure begin.
In our top stories this morning, Kenya bans churches linked to cult deaths. Kenyan authorities have banned 5 churches, including that of the suspected cult leader accused of inciting more than 400 of his followers to starve themselves to death. A government document said on Friday the Register of Societies said in a Gazette notice that the license of self-proclaimed Pastor Paul Mackenzie of Good News International Ministries was cancelled effective 19th May. Mackenzie is alleged to have incited his followers to starve to death in order to meet Jesus in a case that has deeply shocked Kenyans.
Now moving next door, Zimbabwean authorities have deported 4 people who flew into the country to cover Wednesday's general election. Former South African Broadcasting Corporation broadcaster Chris Maroleng, who is the executive director of Good Governance Africa in the Southern African Development Community region, and 3 of his colleagues were denied clearance to cover the election and informed of their deportation on Thursday. Government spokesperson Nick Mangwana said Zimbabwe was deporting foreign journalists who misrepresented their real purpose to be in the country to immigration authorities, adding, quote, message, "If you are an election observer, say so. We accredit such. If you're a journalist, say so. We accredit such. If you make misrepresentations to an immigration officer, you may find yourself on the next plane home." Now, Mr. Maroleng, however, insists that his team had followed all the rules to get accreditation. In total, Zimbabwe's electoral body has only accredited 15 foreign journalists.
In our next story, 7 children killed in a fire at Congolese camp for displaced flood victims. Democratic Republic of Congo on the 19th of August, according to Reuters, at least 7 children were killed in eastern Congo on Saturday after a fire broke out at camp for the displaced by flooding. Local official Thomas Bakega said hundreds of families had been living in makeshift huts at the refuge in the town of Kalehe since May, when devastating floods destroyed their homes in the villages of Bushushu and Nyamukubi in South Kivu province.
Now, Niger's coup leader has proposed a 3-year transition to civilian rule after meeting a delegation of West African leaders and warned that any attack on the country would not be a walk in the park for those involved. General Abdurrahmane Chiani, speaking on national television late Saturday, gave no details on the planned transition of power, saying only that the principles for the move would be decided within 30 days at a dialogue to be hosted by the ruling military council. Neither the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland nor the people of Niger want war and remain open to dialogue, he said after his first meeting with the delegates from the Economic Community of West African States in the Nigerian capital, Niamey.
UN condemn heinous Russian attacks on Ukraine city center. A Russian missile strike on Ukraine's northern city of Chernihiv killed 7 people and wounded more than 100 on Saturday in what the UN called a heinous attack hours after President Vladimir Putin met Moscow's top army commanders. It is heinous to attack the main square of a large city in the morning while people are walking out, some going to church to celebrate a religious day for many Ukrainians, said Denis Brown, the UN's humanitarian coordinator of Ukraine. Chernihiv, 50 kilometers north of Kiev towards Belarus, has been largely spared from major attacks since the first month of Russia's invasion, as fierce fighting ranges in the east and south.
Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. From El Nino to the Zimbabwean election in just 2 days, Talent Gore will be updating us on the stories from the House of Stone shortly.
Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouthwatering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. We're now crossing over to Talent Gore in Zimbabwe as she gives us the latest stories on the ground. Talent, it seems like Zimbabwe is currently facing an El Nino threat. Could you please get into that?
Good morning, Ashwin and Africa. Good morning. Well, apparently Zimbabwe is likely to be revisited by the El Nino weather phenomenon, which causes floods, droughts, and heat wave, a recent report has revealed. El Nino is a natural climate pattern occurring every few years when the Pacific Ocean warms up. This can lead to a change in weather patterns around the world, including droughts in some areas and floods in others. The phenomenon has wreaked havoc in Zimbabwe over the years, triggering both floods and droughts. And the recent report says that El Nino is likely to persist until February 2024, and Zimbabwe is a country that requires close monitoring and where the effects of El Nino may lead to negative outcome and generate humanitarian needs. Well, this is not the first time that Zimbabwe will have to face El Nino. Apparently, it also wreaked havoc in 2006 thereabout, if I'm not mistaken, and again this year it will likely cause more havoc, and it is expected to end in 2024. So now the Zimbabwean government is also going to be monitoring the situation, and they want to be ahead of it when it hits the country.
All right, Talent, in your next story, we only have 2 days to go for the 2023 general elections in Zimbabwe. Tell us about this.
Yes, millions of Zimbabweans are expected to vote on Wednesday, and they'll be electing the next president, parliamentarians, and councillors, and everything is set to go for the elections. Apparently on Wednesday, it is going to be a public holiday in terms of the Section 38 of the Electoral Act, and the Zimbabwe Electoral Deputy Commission, Ambassador Rodney Kiwa, said all was set for the elections, and the commission had acquired all the necessary materials and they were well prepared for the elections, and we are going to be seeing Zimbabweans go out in their numbers to vote for the next president. As it stands right now, the temperatures amongst the citizens is quite, for now, it's okay. People are so eager to vote on Wednesday, but apparently on Friday evening, people were beaten by the police in the streets of Harare. Apparently, there are allegations that there were some people who wanted to protest, and the police went there and beat up people. And so far, 19 police recruits were arrested for causing that chaos and havoc in the streets of Harare.
Yes, I read the letter from the police commissioner on that as well. Now, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, staying with that obviously, is printing 7,126,600 ballot papers against a voting population of 6,623,511 eligible to take part in Wednesday's election. What does this mean?
Well, this means that they have printed more ballot papers because you know how it is when it's election season. Some people, they do not know how to vote. So they have printed more papers just in case they are spilled papers so that they do not have to go about looking for the ballot paper as somewhere else. They're just going to dispatch everything just in case they are printed papers. And the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission will apparently they've actually started dispatching the ballot papers for Wednesday's harmonized election to over 12,000 polling stations countrywide as preparations reach the home stretch. This comes as a Zimbabwe Electoral Commission yesterday completed training 150,000 polling officers to administer the election ahead of the deployment, which is set to begin today. Ballot papers and other crucial voting materials will be distributed under police escort. The election management body was at the weekend finalizing the printing of 7,126,600 ballots for the presidential elections and 7,750,000 for National Assembly polls, and they have printed 6,854,250 others for local authority elections. So they have actually started dispatching the ballot papers, and they'll be distributed starting today across all the polling stations in the country.
All right, we'll certainly be looking at that election and looking forward to getting as many updates as possible from you, Talent. Thank you very much for bringing us the news stories from Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good to have you on Africa Good Morning. Let's head straight to the weather predictions just before economic news.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
Here are the economic news for this morning. Zimbabwe to take 30% of carbon credit revenue. Zimbabwe will allow developers of carbon credit to keep as much as 70% of the proceeds for the first decade of the project, with 30% paid as an environmental levy, the government said in regulation published on Friday. Environment Minister Mangaliso Ndlovu moved against what he called climate washing in May, saying the government will take 50% of carbon project revenue, with 20% on top of that going to communities in a move that surprised global markets. The government said at the time that carbon credit projects were largely unregulated and needed to be registered with authorities within 2 months. The global $2 billion voluntary carbon offset market involves companies buying credit from emission-reducing projects such as renewable energy or tree planting to offset their own emissions.
Now, Nigeria has approved a total of 180 billion naira for its 36 states to procure rice and maize to cushion the effects of food shortages across the country and hardship caused by reforms, Borno State Governor Babagana Zaloum said on Thursday. President Bola Tinubu has embarked on Nigeria's boldest reforms in decades, including scrapping a popular but costly petrol subsidy and devaluing the naira, a move he hopes will boost growth. But the actions have stoked inflation, which climbed to an 18-year high in July. Food prices have soared due to widespread insecurity, flooding in farm areas, a weaker currency, and a higher transport cost, worsening a cost of living across the country. We're going to head to the economic indicators, and when we return, Ari Hohad will be here with the sport. Now, if you're to ask me what my hobbies are, I'd easily say golf, writing, perhaps teaching my dog new tricks, and of course diving into the dark abyss of the Manchester United heart and wrenching every single positivity there could be in there and allowing everything that seeps out to be reflective of how painful a loss should be for them. Now, I could not indulge in my own hobby this weekend. Why? Because after Manchester United lost 2-0 to Tottenham, it was their very own legend, Roy Keane, who called them desperate and said there's no chance of them winning the league. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we can officially consider everything I say about Manchester United above board. But here's Ari Hohad with the real sports news. How's it, Ari?
Yes, very good morning, Ashwin. Yes, it's only week 2 of the Premier League. It's going to be an interesting year. But you talked about a very important result at Tottenham Hotspur beating Manchester United 2-0. There's life after Harry Kane, it seems, for Tottenham Hotspur. So we'll get to that just now. First, the soccer priority this morning is Soccer World, a brilliant tournament that was co-hosted by New Zealand and Australia. And it was won in the end by Spain. Spain beating England in a very exciting final by 1-0. And that is the captain, Olga Karmanova. And she scored the winning goal. And also sadly in a way, because bittersweet, after the game, they had to tell her that her father passed away on the weekend, just before the game as well. He was very sick for a long time. So very sad in the one way, and also then obviously that success for her in the tournament. It was England that was brave, but it was 1-0 in the end for Spain. Deserved, but they also beat the Netherlands and Sweden on their way in the semi-finals and quarter-finals to win the tournament. Also significant because they lost 4-0 in their last playoff game, round-robin game against Japan in Wellington. 4-0 they lost. And there was also a player revolt with their coach Wilda just before the tournament. 15 players said they didn't want to play. Amazing story for them. In the end, it's Spain winning the 2023 Women's World Cup in Australia. Onto that English Premier League you talked about, Ashwin. Yes, a big result for Tottenham Hotspur, beating Manchester United 2-0. Lots to do for Manchester United to come back from that one. It was a away game, however, but not a good start for them in that. Also, Liverpool coming back, they beat Bournemouth by 3-1. Then it is Manchester City still on the winning ways, a very good win for them. They had a tough game there. They play against Newcastle. They were the two form teams in round one. Manchester City beating Newcastle 1-0. And then two teams really struggling. It's Everton. They lost to Aston Villa 4-0. And then Chelsea, despite all the players that they bought, they had a big loss against West Ham. So at the moment, only two unbeaten teams. It's Brighton and Manchester City. But there's another unbeaten team playing tonight. That is Arsenal playing their second game. If they can beat Crystal Palace away from home, they will be one of three teams unbeaten after 2 weeks. Going on to golf news. I don't know if there's time. Is there time, Ashwin?
Yes, there is.
Okay. So let's go on to golf. It was a great victory in the FedEx Cup in the BMW tournament for Victor Hovland. Victor Hovland of Norway. He had a brilliant 61 in his final round. 28 he played on his final 9. Incredible golf from him. He won the BMW championship. He also won $3.6 million. I think he'll be fine for a few years. And then just in second place, Matthew Fitzpatrick and Scotty Scheffler, 2 shots back on -15. That's Scotty Scheffler on the left there. And now the 30 top players on the FedEx rankings, only 30 of them go and play at Eastlake. That is in Atlanta. For the finals, the winner there will take $18 million home. So that's an incredible amount of money they play for. And just to conclude, a few warm-up games in rugby, significant for the Springboks was that Siya Kolisi came through a first half, 40-minute strong performance in playing against, that was the Siya Kolisi playing against Wales. South Africa won 52-16, a friendly in Cardiff. And then England lost to Ireland, 29 points to 10. And Billy Vunipola, there's Vunipola. He also had a shoulder charge on the face of a player, also a red card. So England waiting this week to hear if Vunipola and Owen Farrell will be able to play in the first opening game against Australia. So lots happening in the world of sport. Hope you have a great sport day and the sport week. And we talk international sport again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Ari, and we certainly hope to have a week more productive than the Chelsea manager who took over and signed 26 players and has only won 11 games. Highlights after the break.
Welcome to Active Kids, a daily TV show that sparks creativity, learning, and fun for young minds. With exciting activities and lessons, Active Kids inspires curiosity and a love for learning.
New face to the 15.
The perfect mix of play and education. Don't miss out on the fun. Tune in to Active Kids on NTV every weekday at 10 o'clock and let the adventure begin.
All right, let's get into the highlights from this morning's broadcast. Kenya bans churches linked to cult deaths. Zimbabwe deports SA journalists before election. 7 children killed in fire at Congolese camp for displaced flood victims. Niger coup leader proposes 3-year transition to civilian rule. Zimbabwe to take 30% of carbon credits revenue. Those have been our stories.
Thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Africa Good Morning. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. On that note, it's all our love, all our light.
Swera zvakanaka.